All right, guys, so as promised, I have two bushcrafting knives that I'm going to be pinning against each other. Now, they're both labeled as bushcrafting knives, kind of in the same price class, but different, totally different builds, built in different regions. At the end of the day, I think that these bushcraft knives, even though they're labeled as bushcraft knives, they're going to be for different purposes. Now, it's great that we're living in a time where there's so many different type of price ranges that we can get into to basically get the knife that we're looking for in any price range. Certain knives at certain price ranges, they'll really excel and give you a lot of bargain for what you're paying for. And certain knives, even in a little bit of a higher price range, can give you a really good bang for your buck. So let's see where these knives fall into what category, what they excel in, what they're good at, what they could be improved on, and hopefully at the end of the day, we'll see if one of these knives is for you. And maybe I'll achieve in trying to get you into a brand that you haven't heard of before as well. Let's do our versus Bushcraft versus Bushcraft. All right, so in the left corner, you have the BPS Savage, country of origin, Ukraine. Now, Ukraine proudly makes these knives by hand and delivered to the States, around the country, and they're giving you a very good bargain type of knife. But if you search their site, they do have some more expensive models. Depending on what you spend, you can get better material and a better build knife. This particular knife is a carbon steel, 1066 steel. It is more prone to rust. It's not cryogenically D2 like the OFFGRID or other knives that are coated to prevent rust or stainless steel. It is a carbon steel 1066. It has a listed HRC of around 57 to 59. Total length is about 9.5 inches. The blade length is around 4.5 inches. The blade thickness, that's the big difference, is 0.1 inch. It's not a very thick blade stock. The weight is only 5.1 ounces. The handle, which a lot of people would like, the wood handles, is a bog oak handle that's kind of oil treated, but I think there is room for it to be treated a little bit more. Carrying system is the included leather sheet, and it's a full flat grind finish, super sharp and slicey out of the box, like pretty much all BPS knives are. Okay, and in the right corner is the Ridgeback. It is an OFFGRID bushcraft knife. What OFFGRID did, they went with a larger knife, which is pretty much what they do. They overbuilt their stuff. Most bushcraft knives are a little bit smaller, similar to the size of the BPS, but this is definitely a much larger, more robust knife. I think what they were looking for is to giving you a knife that's a good, all-around good, slicey bushcraft knife, wood kindling and all that, but also go a step further and give you a knife that you could also be comfortable batoning with or chopping with. Like the BPS knife, this full flat grind knife has a 90 degree spine for striking ferro rod, and it has the cryogenically treated D2 steel, which is very popular on OFFGRID. On most OFFGRID knives, and I've used it before, has great edge retention with an HRC of around 61. Very good corrosion resistant type of knife, great for the outdoors and less headache basically thinking about wiping it down every time you use it. So they label it as an outdoor survival, bushcraft, and camping type of knives. The ergos on the knife, like all OFFGRID knives, are great. Really fills it in the hand with the micarta handle, very attractive looking knife. It has the Kydex sheath, which is a weatherproof Kydex sheath. Without the sheath is about 8.6 ounces, big difference in the weight. The blade length, also difference, is a 5.5 inch. The blade width is around 1.6 inches, bigger stock. Blade thickness at 3.7 inches. It is a drop point blade. Blade finish is stone wash. So on my right, you have the BPS Savage. Now the BPS Savage has more of an old-fashioned leather type of sheath. It has the belt loop, but it also has the dangler, in which that's how I have it as a dangler position here, which means if you have it tight corners or you need to move the knife or get in your car, it can easily position itself to basically cater to what you want it in, depending on how you need to basically keep it. So that's a pretty good option in terms of how this dangler is here, but you also have the belt loop if you want to keep it straight up and down. The only problem with that is, guys, you have to take your belt off. There's no way to unbutton it. There's no Velcro. Like I said, it's more of an old-fashioned, traditional type of carry, and you have to take your belt off in order to keep it on. On my left, you have the OFFGRID Ridgeback, which is a more modern Kydex sheath, and they do a great job with their Kydex sheets. Now, the good thing about this is the fact that, again, it's a solid sheet. It's a straight up and down. You can move it around to make it a scout carry if you want, but the beauty about this sheath is, and that's pretty much a constant on pretty much a lot of the OFFGRID knives, is the fact that you can take it off. You have the button and the Velcro. If if you need to basically remove it if you are getting into your car. So that solves the problem, basically the dangle being able to move side to side. You can physically take it off and very easily put it right back on your belt. So that's different carries that you're getting from both these knives. So taking a look at the BPS knife, it does have a nice traditional leather sheath. Very nice stitch, it's glued and stitched, nice thickness on the spine. It's a nice blade shape. I really do like the knife. Full flat grind, okay? Not a lot of traffic, not a lot of really things to see or look at in the actual blade itself. It is, you see the lines go straight down in one direction here. Full flat grind, very, very sharp out of the box like BPS. Most of their knives, and people who know about BPS know that their knives are extremely sharp and ready to go right out of the box. But they do have, this has a little bit thinness on the edge. It's not a big stock like the OFFGRID, and that's something to put into account in terms of the usage of the knife. It's symmetrically, it looks pretty good. It could have been done a little bit better, but symmetrically they do a pretty good job. It's got a really nice handmade feel. You have the tang that sticks out here with a lanyard hole for maybe some easy pounding, but nothing that you're going to basically put like hammer bolts in. But it does have a little 90-degree bevel here, so you can probably strike a ferro rod from this here, which we'll try a little bit later. You notice these are not pinned. These screws can be tightened if needed, especially if you are attempting to do any batoning with it. So you can also remove these, because this is finished. It's a finished bog oak, slightly oiled, but it can be finished a little bit more. If you really brush against it with your finger, you can feel some of the wood fibers. So this can definitely be sanded down and treated a little bit more than it is now. So it could be like a good project knife, or maybe you want to treat them with wood, or you could probably change it to a Mikado or a G10 handle. This is around 4.5-inch handle compared to the Ridgeback, which is around 4.75. So it's a little bit more purchase on the Ridgeback or the OFFGRID. This fits nice into the hand. It feels good. The wood, the bog oak definitely does feel pretty good in the hand. I don't see any problem with holding it. A little bit of tension here. I think there's a little bit of, this could have been finished a little bit better here. It's a little sharp over here. It's a little rough edge, so it can dig into your hand a little bit. Some heavy work on it. This can dig into your hand and kind of really maybe just cause some scratches or abrasions on your hand. So I would recommend sanding this down a little bit to before you really start using it heavy. It is a rough finish, guys. Everything is kind of a rough finish. Good fit and finish, but it is a rough finish because you're paying for pretty much a $40 knife. Has no jimping here. If you want to basically choke up on it, you can. This might feel a little bit uncomfortable on the thumb if you're really choking up on it hard. But we'll see how it feels later when we do some cutting. So again, it feels good in the hand. Could feel better if it was kind of refined a little bit better on a couple of the couple spots where you come to contact with the skin. But I like the wood handle. I like the fact that you can treat it and change it around if you want as a good project knife. But that's pretty much what you got. Light in the hand. It's a very nimble, light knife. It's not anything that's really heavy in the hand. If you're interested, if you want something with less fatigue, this is definitely the knife for you. It'll be sharp. It'll be able to cut out of the box. So here is the OFFGRID Ridgeback. The OFFGRID Ridgeback has that beautiful Kydex sheet. Okay, they're known for doing some really great Kydex sheets. You have the Molle compatible. You can change this around. You can make this a scout carry, whatever you want. Fits perfectly. The tension is perfect. The tension is also great on the BPS, but this is good and locked into place. I love that click that you get. Locking into place, it doesn't wiggle, doesn't rattle inside there. You have the drainage hole right here, perfect for an outdoor type of knife. Basically, you can also pop it open, with one hand and just have the Kydex sheet go flying. You can see it has a much thicker stock. Right off the bat, you can see it has gentle, really nice jimping right on the top here, which symbolizes the top of the Ridgeback dog. And that's really pretty much a lot of thought was put into basically how they named it and how you designed this knife. You have a very aggressive, oversized spear point / drop point type of blade. My Carter handles fit extremely comfortable in the hands. I can't emphasize enough. I'm kind of biased with OFFGRID. All their handles are built tough, built oversized, and built to completely fit your hand extremely comfortably. Nothing here that's basically cutting into your fingers or anything like that. No hot spots whatsoever. Like the BPS, this is just made to be a very comfortable outdoor, everyday, all day type of use without any discomfort whatsoever. Obviously, it's a heavier knife, so you may have fatigue using it all day, where the BPS is a little bit lighter, the actual fit and finish of it will make it as comfortable as it possibly can for you. Obviously, you can wear gloves with the BPS and that'll solve a lot of problems, but just the way this kind of really fits the flubber of your hand, it can't be matched in terms of the comfort of it. It's just built with this micarta handle, thicker stock, oversized handle to be extremely comfortable. It's also around, you see the full tang goes all the way around, and it's also around 4.75 inches, so it's a little bit bigger than the BPS. But comfort-wise, it's excellent. It's a great combination of a 61 HRC, something that's going to basically be treated to be corrosion resistant. Edge retention is there with the 61 HRC. It looks to be something that's going to last a little bit longer. You can see the tip is a little bit more reinforced. And if you put the knife side up and down, side to side, you can see how much more reinforced the tip is because of the bigger stock on the Ridgeback compared to the BPS. When you compare them side to side, you can see the blade length, you can see the stock is bigger, and you can see the point is more reinforced. So I can have a feeling when we do the tip test, this will survive, where probably the BPS might have a little bit problem or maybe have some bending. This is also very sharp out of the box. Probably the BPS has a step up being extremely sharp. I mean, those are just made to be really razor sharp out of the box, but this is definitely no slouch. We're going to do initial sharpness to see basically how they hold up. Initial sharpness, we're going to first start with the BPS Savage. This is some ratchet strap, okay, basically that I use in pretty much all my tests. And as I said, completely and utterly sharp right out of the box. Yeah, initial sharpness of the BPS, as advertised, is pretty much completely razor sharp out of the box. Thank you to Scare from Fireboys Cutlery for hooking me up with all these materials. I don't have to go any further. I mean, one swipe and it's cut. OFFGRID Ridgeback initial sharpness tests. And this is equally as sharp. It probably went through a little bit better. This basically also, this is a heavier knife, so it gives you a little bit of the weight of the knife into the cut. Gives you also a very sharp edge, and this went through with no problem. Perfectly sharp. Like no effort whatsoever. Definitely very sharp out of the box. Again, initial sharpness, check. Both of them are very sharp out of the box. Special shout out to Samurai Bird for these Backyard Cutters local 1095 shirts. Love them. This one's a little bit more, the weight helps you out a little bit more, just pushing to the edge. Now let's go with the Ridgeback initial sharpness with the sandblast hose, considering this is steel belted industrial material. Yeah, this is even a joke. I mean, absolutely no effort whatsoever in kind of cutting the sandblast hose. And I mean, I use this material on all knives, but basically how this kind of went through this material is pretty amazing. Very impressed with the initial sharpness out of the box of this knife so far. So let's see how the BPS knife does with the sandblast hose. Definitely went through it, no problem. Given the weight of the knife, you do have to push a little bit harder, whereas the Ridgeback was doing pretty much all the work, but this is just also insanely sharp out of the box. Just this comes a little bit of a heavy weight lifting because it is heavy. I mean, it'll definitely deep branch your trees if you're trying to process wood. It'll do its job. And again, slicing sharp. Again, just does a lot easier work with it because of the wood stock and that beefier type of blade. So again, same job. Feel like it's a little bit more efficient with this knife, but equally both of them can do the same thing. You just have to work a little less harder because it has the weight and the stock of the knife with you. Definitely processed wood. The only thing is, if you want to choke up on it, you feel a little pain basically here not being finished and not having the jimping there and the stock being a little bit thinner. You feel it in your thumb a little bit. Again, if you just kind of let go of it as a jimping method and just kind of keep it there, you don't feel it. But again, a little fatigue because again, it's just the weight of the knife is not there. But again, it can do the job. You just got to work. You got to work a little bit smarter. You got to learn your knife. you got to manipulate yourself a little bit to make the knife you have in your hand work. But in terms of processing wood, I mean, it's a sharp knife. Definitely has the edge that can kindle wood, process wood for a fire or something like that. Make some nice fine slices, you can see. Never been camping, but I know in camping they do process food when you go camping. So this would be a perfect profile, perfect slicey type of knife that's really straight, pin straight edge to a sharp point that could be used to basically a good food processor. But in terms of kindling wood, I mean, this does a great job. The edge is great. Same test, let's go with the Ridgeback. More comfortable in the hand, equally as slicey, but again, it's just the comfort. The comfort is there. The comfort of the knife is there, and the fact that it just how it feels in the hand. This is a great cutting knife in terms of processing wood. Really fine slices, and I feel like this knife does a little bit more of the work, and you can see those fine slices there than the BPS did. The slicing, but this is a great slicing knife, and I feel like I feel less fatigue, but it just slices. Whew, look at that. Yeah, I felt like, wood processing, this thing did a really nice job, and you can pretty much keep on going with this all day long. All right, so they basically say that this has a 90 degrees for spine, okay? And it feels like it has a pretty sharp 90-degree spine on the BPS Savage. Yeah, you definitely get a spark very easily with the BPS. This not so much, but yeah, you got some 90 degrees there. You're definitely getting some sparks. The BPS has a lot more of a 90 degree, more defined 90 degree bevel, because you also have the jimping here, so you can't really use that. But yeah, if you really need to get a fire going, you can get it. In fact, there's some smoke blowing here, but yeah. So this completes, not as good as a BPS, but you definitely can get a spark going from the veg. The 90 degree bevel here, not as defined as the BPS, but if need be, you can. All right, a little bit more of an abusive test. We're going to start with the BPS. We want to check the point. Okay, this being a little bit more of a finer point, let's do some quick stabbing. We're going to dig this into the wood. We'll do it about 5 times. We're going to see basically wiggling around if the point survives this type of treatment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, point looks still pretty good. Doesn't look like it's bent or anything like that. It looks pretty good. It's actually quite surprising that it didn't. Ooh, they spoke too soon. See the tip actually broke off. Tip actually broke off on this BPS knife, and again, I heard it kind of torquing a little bit, but now the last hit, it kind of really just completely broke off. I wonder if you could see that there. Completely broke itself off, so that's a major failure on the point of this knife. Let's try the same thing with the OFFGRID. 3, 5. I think I did 6. Yeah, point stayed true on this one. Same test, same piece of wood, different holes, and the point definitely stayed true on this compared to it breaking off on this. So there, right off the bat, broke off the point on this BPS knife. Much more reinforced tip. I had a feeling that this point wouldn't survive that. And again, I wasn't really being that aggressive with it. It was just simple hit with the point. I wasn't really digging it in and putting too much force on it, but I'm surprised but not surprised that it broke, because I have a feeling that the point was a little thin. And just so you know, that basically the point, if you can't wedge anything with this, you got to be very careful with the point if you're looking to use this, light duty, because it will break off on you. Whereas the Ridgeback, same test, no bends, no breaks or anything, and it felt more secure as it was digging into the wood. I'm actually surprised that it didn't bend before chipping. It chipped right away, so that's not too good. has to say maybe about the heat tempering or something like that, because I did see this bend before it broke on some other reviewers' tests. So that's the only reason I did it, because I wanted to see if my copy was able to bend, but this one actually broke. All right, so we move on with the test. We're gonna follow up with the Ridgeback. This is supposed to be built to be a bushcrafting knife, but also built to be a hard hitter from OFFGRID. Really sticks into the wood. Again, it's not a heavy knife. It's not meant to be a heavy knife. You could definitely chop with it. I think you don't have to worry about it a little bit. We're gonna put a little bit more pressure on this and really make a notch and test the edge a little bit more with this knife right here. Try to just do like 1-inch notches. As if like we're doing a tri-stick. And again, this is just to put a little bit more pressure on the edge and the spine, and it's really going into this piece of wood really, really well. And I'm actually hitting it also even in an angle, and it's making a nice, pretty nice notch into the wood for me. Here's a notch, kind of hitting it into it, batoning into the wood. So that survived. Let's try the BPS, even a broken tip BPS. Let's see how the edge, since we already broke it, let's see how much the edge can take to make up a notch. Definitely digs into the wood really well though. You can see the weight difference basically, how the knife is not digging in as much as the OFFGRID, because it doesn't have the torque, it doesn't have the spine and the weight in the blade itself. But it's definitely making a notch for me. But you can see, not as easy of a job as I did with the Ridgeback. Not as a clean of a notch as a Ridgeback, and I felt a little uncomfortable in the hand. I felt like basically as I was batoning it, it wasn't really staying in the right direction. You really had to struggle to keep it in the right direction. And again, that's just because of the thickness of the spine. But if we look at the edge, yeah, the edge itself, I think kind of survived. It's not really a batoning type of knife, but if you really wanted to baton with it, you could. But again, it's not really, it doesn't excel. This knife doesn't excel in batoning as it would the OFFGRID one, because that's not really what it's designed for. I mean, you can baton. They advertise that it can baton, but I don't think it can baton in anything, you know, larger than like these thin pieces of wood. If you really needed to process something, ow, my finger. Definitely do a job, but also understand, since the tip broke when you're batoning, you might actually have to worry about having that problem with the tip breaking on you. Let's try a little bit thicker piece of wood. Yes, but if you have to baton with it, you could definitely baton with it. I just don't think, if you use this just for batoning with it, I don't think it's going to survive. I think it's definitely good. The edge is definitely going to feel it, you know, after a while. It's not really a robust knife for batoning. All right, so for the Ridgeback though, we are going to go with a thicker piece of wood. With a lot of pressure on that point. And it's fine. Ooh, made my BPS full. Yeah, batoning wise, this is definitely built to be more of a batoner. Yep, well, that's what it's advertised for, and that's pretty much what it does. More of a, just a bushcraft knife, but it can be used for batoning heavy pieces of wood and also slamming into the wood, batoning some notches out. Did a good job, and the blade looks fine. And then maybe cleaning it up a little bit, the blade looks absolutely fine. Whereas the poor BPS feels like the handle screws are a little bit loosening from putting a little more, you know, from feeling that impact. I feel if I move my finger side to side, up and down, I feel like these screws need to be tightened, which you can tighten these up or replace them. But I feel like with the impacts and the pressure, this the handle is definitely clicking. Yep, if you heard that in the mic, it's definitely clicking. So there's definitely some moving from the abrasion, from the impact. The point is broken. The edge is still okay. I think it could definitely still cut. So if it had to be, if you broke the point and the handle is loose, you still got a knife, and it's still cut, and it's still hanging strong, man. I mean, again, listen, this is a $40 knife, and even with the damage, with the point, you still got a working edge that's still cutting. It's still cutting and still doing its job. So is the Ridgeback, still working after all that impact and all that pressure, and hanging strong. Now, I can't really do with the BPS because I don't have a point to penetrate anymore. So we're just gonna do this with the Ridgeback. Nice penetration. Again, I'm not hook smashing it, but it is pretty much going good with no problem. The other thing I'm gonna do is to basically put some more pressure on the edge to see if I can't get any imperfections, chips or dips or anything like that on the edge of the BPS. Is my good old rubber steel belted rubber tire test. Now I can't penetrate with this, so I'm gonna go with a cut that was already made because obviously we don't have a point. So after all that cutting, it's still a really, really fine slicer in this BPS Savage, for sure. Very fine slicer. You know, I feel like it's actually even penetrating even without a point. But as far as slicing, I mean, this is good. And I feel also with the pressure on this, I feel like I feel the looseness in here. But again, if I tighten it, I'm sure it'll be fine. But the edge is still good. The edge retention is holding up. It is slicing this tire with no apparent issue whatsoever. Seems okay, but again, a little looseness in the handle here. But the edge seems like it's holding up. Damn, I wish that point didn't break. All right, guys, same tire, same test, off grid. There it goes. Just about in. Yeah, there it goes. And yeah, this is equally a very, very slicey edge, still going. Again, like with all the materials I've cut with this thing, I just feel like the knife is doing more of the work for me. Maybe it's just the blade geometric, or the thickness of the spine, or the weight of it, or the cutting edge, but this nice flat grind is really cutting extremely well. Right into that tire, steel belted. And not that I thought it would, but the edge is still good, penetrated good, and the edge held up to that steel belted stuff. You have the hose and the steel belted tire, but both edges pretty much held up. Just that, again, this felt like it did help me in the job. It helped me do the job a little bit more, and it's great when you compare Bushcraft to Bushcraft, you can see the difference between the two knives. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around me this long. So as promised, we did a versus Bushcraft versus Bushcraft, okay? BPS Savage and the Ridgeback from OFFGRID. Now, other than the point breaking off, this knife didn't do so bad. This is a great slicing knife, great knife for 40 bucks. Okay, if you're looking to get an outdoor knife, something you could go camping with, a light duty type of knife, this is a fantastic, you could basically designate this as a food prep type of knife while you're out camping, kindling some wood, making some notches, debarking some wood. I would not do anything much more rough than that. Definitely don't baton with it, because again, unless they're really light sticks, I won't put that much pressure on the point. As you can see, it did break off. So other than that though, it's still slicing sharp. So again, this is the BPS. Yeah, it's still very, very, that dragged a little bit. That was my fault. Still slicing sharp. And the Ridgeback, even though this is used paper, also still absolutely, this is even sharper. The edge retention is better. The 61 HRC makes a big difference. It really does. The edge retention is better with all the banging and everything I did with this. This is still really pretty much shaving sharp. So what do I have with these two knives? Again, light duty knife. Again, movement in the scales. I would have to basically screw it a little tight, it'll be fine. This is a good project knife, like I said. If you want to take the scales off, put some better treatment on the oak, which will look fantastic, a better treatment on it. This is a great project knife for 40 bucks. Light duty knife. Again, I would say this is a camp knife, but not a heavy duty bushcrafter. Can it do bushcraft things? As long as they're light duties. Then comes the Ridgeback from OFFGRID. Now, this Ridgeback is labeled as a bushcrafting type of knife, but they're also saying that it's built oversized to be a little bit more than just your typical sized bushcraft knife. They said you can baton with this, you can basically chop with this. It's going to be a lot more rugged use, outdoor, dependable knife. I think this is definitely the knife, guys. If that's a great budget knife, this is definitely a great bang for the buck. Most OFFGRID knives are great bang for the buck. This, in terms of how rigid and how tough it is, the cryogenic D2, the weatherproofing, the Kydex sheath, the thickness of the spine, the comfort in the hand with this incredibly comfortable handle, in my Carter scales, full tang, excellent fit and finish, no hot spots whatsoever, feels great in the hand. This is definitely the knife you would want. Best deal right now is on Amazon. I'll leave the link, my associate's link, so you can take a look at it if you're interested. But this Ridgeback has a great deal on Amazon with it right now, this exact knife. And I think this is a great buy. Great budget knife in the BPS if you're looking to spend around 40 bucks, but great all around bang for the buck in this OFFGRID Ridgeback. Bushcraft versus bushcraft, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this type of video, let me know and we'll definitely do more. And if you guys stayed to the very end of this video, put in the keyword summer is fun, so I know that you watched the whole video, and I appreciate the guys that stuck around to the end of my video.